Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. Today I am sharing with you some meals that I have made for my family of 6 this past week. These are all budget friendly, so they are great to have if you are trying to save on your grocery bill. They are also super easy and come together quick for those super busy school nights. I hope today's video gives you some ideas and inspiration on some things that you can make in your own kitchen. I will have all of today's recipes down below in the description box if you want to try any of them yourself. I try to share videos like this every week to give everyone motivation and ideas in their own kitchen. I also look forward to hearing ideas from you guys because it always gives me inspiration for my own kitchen. But if this is something that you enjoy watching, I would love for you to subscribe and follow along each week. The first meal that we're going to get started with today is chicken and Swiss casserole. With school starting up here soon, I heard as early as next week, which is just crazy to me, but with school starting up here soon, I have noticed there has been quite a bit more discussion on how to make quick meals that are really budget friendly. That is something that I always put an emphasis on in my family and on my channel because we really have a tight budget when it comes to groceries, especially these days. And so I'm always trying to get that grocery bill down as much as I possibly can. And recently I've actually been really researching and trying new recipes to try to get it down as far as I possibly can. And I'm kind of aiming for a certain dollar amount. So I have been going through this whole trial and error period, and you're going to see that within these next coming weeks that I am testing some new recipes and new ideas to really work on my grocery budget. For this meal, I kept it very simple and I got a rotisserie chicken. I like to take it a step further though, and I get my rotisserie chicken in, it's not the deli section, but it's kind of over in that area. Like it's with actually like the hamburger and stuff like that. And you can find it in the cold area and they are significantly cheaper. So I want to say it was only about $3 for the entire rotisserie chicken because they are the colder ones and not the warm ones. And so you save just about half. So I ended up getting one of those because I knew that it would be a lot easier and quicker to just shred one of those up and use that instead of cooking chicken ahead of time and doing that whole process. So that is what I did. I shredded up an entire rotisserie chicken. I put it into the bottom of my baking dish and then I layered Swiss cheese slices over top of it. Now I'm putting together just a mixture that's going to go over top. I have a bunch of different seasonings, some mayo, some cream of chicken soup. I'll have all the ingredients listed down below in the description box if you want to try this recipe out, but I'm just mixing it all together and then I'm going to pour it over top. If you are making this recipe and you're doing it the way that I did it with the rotisserie chicken, I highly recommend putting those bones and all the leftover skin and everything in a freezer bag, putting it in your freezer for whenever you can make a huge pot of broth. I love doing that. So you will see at some point in this video that I actually whip those back out of the freezer and I make a large pot of broth with them. If you have not seen my last video, I discussed a little bit how my son has been sick and he has had a really bad, we thought, ear infection. We're kind of actually tossing around the idea can't talk this morning. We're tossing around the idea that it is possible he got a tick bite and we are seeing symptoms from that. So we have been in and out of the doctor's office all week. It has been a whole thing. He has had so many medications and things prescribed to him, and we're really trying to narrow down what is happening with him. But because of all this happening, he's very, very swollen. He can't really move his jaw very well. And so he is unable to eat a lot of the meals. So that large pot of chicken broth really helped us out this week when it came to him being able to actually eat. So he had that and for most of the week, and it's always nice to have on hand, especially with school starting. Everybody gets those back to school germs and gets sick often. So that is something that is really great on hand to have just in case anybody gets sick, or if they don't, thankfully, then you will have a bunch of broth that you can use in recipes. While I have been talking this whole time, I was getting a stuffing mixture together. I put that over top and then I put that in the oven. This is how it turned out of the oven. It is so bubbly and cheesy and it's just delicious. It is very simple and comes together quick, so it is perfect for those school nights. This next recipe said it was from the 80s and it said it was a lasagna pasta bake. So it's basically just like a lasagna, but you're just kind of layering noodles. It used the spiral noodles. My daughter wanted bow tie, so that is what I did instead of the spiral, but it all works the same. I thought this recipe was actually really good. I love lasagna. I think I make good lasagna. However, I have always said my mom makes the absolute best lasagna. And so I think I always compare mine to hers. And I always think that mine isn't as good because hers is absolutely the best. So anyway, I do think though that this recipe, it was so easy. It was nice to put together because it was during those really busy times. It came together very quick and it was delicious, just like a lasagna. While I have the pasta going and the beef on the stove, I am getting together all the stuff that I want for the broth. So I just took all of the bones and whatever was left on the bones that I put in the freezer, I put that into this big pot and I am cutting an onion. I left the skin, everything on it. I always just throw all of that into the pot with it. I'm going to fill the pot with water, put the lid on, and once I have some space available on my stove, I'm going to move this over to the stove and let it boil. So this is something that is great too. Like a lot of times if I'm cutting vegetables, the ends of the vegetables, anything that you usually throw away, I will put in a freezer bag and I just have it in my freezer. Once that bag is full, then I dump it all into a pot and make a broth out of that. So it's really nice to use things that are usually you're going to throw away. It's good to make a broth out of a lot of times. So I have actually multiple bags in my freezer going at pretty much all the time, just so I can always make broth. So now I have on the stove, I'm getting together the sauce. I have a pound of ground beef going in this pan. I put in some just traditional pasta sauce. I'm going to put a little bit of water in the pan also to kind of fill it up a little bit. And I have the pasta going in the other pot, getting that cooked through. Once the pasta was done, I drained it and I am now going to put in like a cheese type of mixture. So this is the first time I've ever thought to use sour cream in like a lasagna. However, it had some sour cream in there, so I put that in. I'm just eyeballing it. I will put the actual recipe down below, but I'm just eyeballing it. So I put in about a cup-ish of sour cream, and then you can use like ricotta if you want. The recipe that I'm following, it had cottage cheese, which I think I tend to like a little bit more than ricotta. So I'm mixing that all together. I end up putting like some garlic and Italian seasoning in this as well. Just mixing that up, and then we're going to put that into a casserole dish, and just like a normal lasagna, you kind of layer it just as if you would. However, I feel like it was so much easier this way, so this might be the way that I tend to do from now on, just because it was so simple. I am curious, now that I'm putting all this together, I'm curious If this is something that if you have lived through the 80s, you were an adult or you were making meals throughout the 80s, I'm curious if this was a meal that was pretty popular back then, because I was born in the 80s, but 89, so I was definitely not making any food then. However, I just thought it was kind of funny that it said 80s pasta lasagna. I can't remember what it was called, but it said specifically that it was from the 80s. I thought that was kind of interesting. So if you were making food in the 80s, I would love to hear if this was a popular recipe that you saw. Speaking of older meals, I think I mentioned it in my last video, but I found a cookbook kind of a while ago. But whenever I was antiquing and thrift shopping, I love looking at the different cookbooks and stuff, and ones that I find really interesting or that have different recipes, I always grab them because I think it would be so cool to cook through like a vintage cookbook. So anyway, in my last video, I think it was, I discussed possibly cooking through this cookbook that I had found a while ago, but I've kind of held on to, and I was recently looking in it and looking at different recipes. I made a cookie recipe that was really, really good, a huge hit with my family. And I'm like, you know what, this would be really fun to cook through that. And I think I want to do like a whole series where I pick out some meals throughout this cookbook and we just kind of cook through this cookbook. But that is something that I think I'm going to start here soon. I may go get like the ingredients probably this weekend and start it next week. But I thought it was kind of fun idea. And this cookbook in particular, I think it's like an old church cookbook, but the recipes, I loved that they were all so simple. And then also they had very minimal ingredients. So a lot of them are budget friendly as well. But anyway, if that is something that you're interested in seeing, definitely stick around because I do plan on doing that probably this coming week. And here is how our 80s lasagna dish turned out. It was nice and bubbly and cheesy, everything you want from a casserole dish. So that is how it turned out. And then I also did serve it with just a very simple side salad. For this next meal, I really didn't know what to call it, so I called it Marry Me Spinach and Gnocchi, only because I was following a recipe, but if you have been here a while, you know I can never follow a recipe. So I really made it my own, and I had kind of mashed together two different recipes. If you're familiar with the Marry Me recipes, I mean, they have a million of them. I think the most popular is the Marry Me chicken. So I have never actually made any of those, I don't believe. And of course, the first one that I try, I end up mashing two of them together. So I did ground beef instead. So I had found one because I didn't really have a ton of chicken on hand. And I'm like, you know what, let me just see what I can do with like ground beef instead. So that is what I'm doing. And I ended up adding in the gnocchi, I think is also a different one. Like people, they'll use like different varieties. I think also some of them don't even use like a noodle, but a lot of them do. Anyway, regardless, I kind of made it my own. It turned out fabulous. I really, really love this recipe. So you just know though, you can really make it your own. If you're wanting to do chicken, you can do chicken. If you want to do ground beef, you can do that. I've seen people do meatballs too, which was kind of the direction I was wanting to go in. However, if I form a meatball and I call it a meatball, my daughter will not eat it. So I don't know what her deal is with like the shape of things. So anyway, I knew that if I just made it ground beef and I made it really small chunks, that she would be more likely to eat it. So that is what we did. I think another reason why this recipe is so popular is I believe it's always like a one pan recipe. And that was the case for mine. And for the most part, I think that's pretty much what I saw on the internet when I was kind of looking for different varieties of this one. But anyway, so in the pan, I have going a pound of ground beef. I have that cooking through, and then I'm going to take it out of the pan, and I'm going to put these onions in the pan and start, just the process of that, of cooking things in the pan. And you kind of cook them in a way to where you don't want to burn the onions and the garlic and stuff. And we'll make a sauce and just kind of add things back in as we go. Now that the meat is done, I'm going to put it off to the side in that same pan with the grease and whatever is left in the pan. You want to really keep those flavors in there. You're going to add the onions and the garlic. I think I added some Italian seasoning, which it was a great additive in my opinion. So you can really add a variety of seasonings, whatever you're wanting to do. And like I said, you can do chicken, you can do whatever you're wanting. Really make it your own. Use whatever you have on hand. And it turns out really, really delicious. So anyway, now I have the onions going into there. I'm going to put some seasoning in, get those onions to start cooking through and becoming fragrant. Once I have the onions cooked down a little bit, I'm going to add in some other things. So I did wait a little bit to add in the garlic. I didn't want that to burn. If you have fresh garlic or minced garlic, you could definitely do that too. I just never have that on hand. Another thing I kept seeing in these recipes was everyone was using the oil from the sun-dried tomatoes. So that is what I'm adding in now, just the oil. I will chop up and add the sun-dried tomatoes in just a little bit, but everybody was using the oil, assuming it had a really good flavor to it. So I added that as well. I added some tomato paste. I didn't use this entire can, but I want to say I used about 3/4 of it. I'm just getting everything mixed together. I'll put in the sun-dried tomatoes. I did dice mine up because they were in large chunks whenever I took it out of the can. So I diced those up, put those in, and then I'm going to slowly start adding ingredients. Now, if you have been here a while, you know that I just kind of eyeball a lot of things. So getting it to a consistency that I'm wanting, I'm adding in some chicken broth that I had made days prior and putting that in. I'll add some more just to get it to a consistency. These are potato gnocchi that I'm adding in, and so I know that they'll soak up a lot of that moisture, which is another reason why I ended up adding in more broth. We will be adding cream to this as well, but I'm wanting to kind of cook the gnocchi and stuff a little bit more before that. I used, probably for the very first time in my life, I want to say I don't remember ever using frozen spinach. I think I will remain in just the area where I always buy the fresh spinach. I don't know what came over me. I think I thought, one, with everything going on with like the lettuce and I don't even know what it's on at this point, the cilantro. I didn't know about that, with spinach. So just to be on the safe side, I thought, well, maybe if I got some chopped frozen spinach, that would be different. However, then, going back and thinking about that, I'm cooking it, so I guess it wouldn't have mattered in the first place anyway. Regardless, I tried that and I was not a fan of the texture of it, so I probably won't end up doing frozen spinach again. However, I feel like other than the texture of it, it really did not change anything in this dish. This was an absolutely incredibly flavorful dish. So highly suggest this. If you're going to make anything from this video, I would suggest making this. I also did not have heavy cream or milk or anything other than like chocolate milk and half and half. So I used half and half. It worked out beautifully, but the recipe I believe calls for heavy cream, or if you don't have that, at least milk. And so I opted for the half and half instead of the chocolate milk, which probably would not have been very good. And I'm just getting it again to a consistency, adding in cheese, and this was such an incredible meal. I cannot stress that enough. regardless of what meat you have on hand. Like I said, I've seen it a variety of ways with chicken, with shrimp, with meatballs, with ground beef. Use whatever you have on hand. This one is super quick to come together yet again. And it probably was the more pricier one in my week to make. However, really it still was not very pricey. So definitely make this if you have everything available. For our last meal, I'm going to be making a 5-ingredient Crockpot BBQ chicken, and I also am going to be making the Hawaiian buns to go with it. However, if you are wanting to keep this very simple and easy and the true 5 ingredients, you can just buy the Hawaiian buns or the Hawaiian rolls and make that, and not make them from scratch. I really have a great recipe that I like using for them, so I don't mind if I have the time. I don't mind making them. My family really enjoys them. So that is what I'm going to do. However, you absolutely can buy those from the store. I will have the recipe listed down below though if you want to try to make your own Hawaiian buns. I did have this recipe in my last video, so if you saw my last video, this may be a little bit of a repeat. I tried to kind of simplify it in this video, so I'm adding everything in the crock pot. I have 2 chicken breasts in the crock pot. I put on a large amount of barbecue sauce. I think the girl in the original recipe used the entire bottle of barbecue sauce. I didn't feel like that was quite necessary, so I did use a lot, but not the whole bottle. And then I ended up adding some bouillon and water only because I was going to have it in the crock pot. It was frozen and I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to burn. So I don't think you have to do that. The lady in the recipe did not, but I did it just so it wouldn't burn. And then a packet of ranch seasoning went in the crock pot. After it cooked and defrosted the chicken, then I added in half a block of cream cheese and I let that just go until I could shred the chicken. So in the meantime, I am throwing together the ingredients for the Hawaiian buns. And if you are new, I always say this specifically with these recipes because I, a long time ago, was very nervous when it came to bread making. However, a lot of the recipes are so much easier once you actually get started, and this is definitely one of them. If you are new to bread making or you're a little nervous about baking bread, this is definitely a good starter one. It is very foolproof in my opinion and usually comes out very well. So I have all the ingredients. I let it rise for about an hour. That's generally around this time of year. My kitchen is very warm and that's about all it takes. And I let it rise for that hour until it doubles in size. And then I got the air pockets out and I am rolling these now into buns. The only note that I have for this recipe is if you're going to be making them in buns like I am, just do 8 instead of the 6 that I did because they always rise so significantly and I always forget that. So these turn out huge because I forgot and I should have done 8 to make them a little bit smaller and instead I did 6. So I ended up actually, whenever these were all done, we did like half sandwiches because they were just that big. I am forming these into little dough balls. I am pinching the seams together and I'm going to put them seam side down onto this pan that I do line with some parchment paper. Then I'm going to brush them with some egg wash and I will let them rise one more time before I put them in the oven till they're about doubled in size, which took just about an hour, maybe not even quite that. Like I said, if you saw my previous video, you already saw me making this meal. I just tried to kind of symbolize it in this video in particular. And I did have intentions of actually having another meal on here. But like I said, with everything going on with my son and us back and forth to different doctors and trying to get everything figured out, it was a pretty crazy week, and the day that I was going to actually film the 5th meal, we did not get home from the doctor's until late, and I'm like, I don't have it in me to cook a meal, and actually like film everything. So what we did was we just had leftovers, and we had such delicious leftovers still from the entire week. So I'm like, I just took them all out and let everybody come in and pick what they wanted to eat. And we just had a nice leftover meal, nice and easy. And it was definitely needed because this week has just been insane here. Okay, so I am putting the egg wash on again. I had them covered, they rose, and then I put the egg wash on before I put them into the oven. So those are in the oven. The chicken is done, so I shredded it up. I mixed up the cream cheese, got it all incorporated. I'm putting it back into the pot where I'm going to mix it up and make sure everything's nice and coated. And then by that point, the buns will be coming out of the oven. We'll slice those and we'll assemble them. The recipe that I had followed, she used pickles, like quite a bit of sliced pickles on hers. And we love pickles in our family. So I'm like, I'm definitely going to try that. I sliced up some pickles to put on, and it made such an amazing combination. So if you and your family likes pickles, I highly suggest trying this whole meal out with pickle slices on it. It was so good. I'm going to finish assembling these, getting these all put together for dinner time, but this is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And like I said, this is something that I like posting at least once a week. So if this is something that you like seeing, you like getting ideas from other families about low budget and easy meals to put together, this is something that I usually post once a week and would love for you to subscribe if this is something you'd like to watch. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.